NASCAR is still by far the most popular motorsport in the United States of America, but there's no denying that its popularity has definitely waned a little bit, especially the last several years. I know this has been a hot topic of conversation among all NASCAR fans, and I know I've talked about it several times on this channel, on this show, but today I came across an article that provides some new insight that I thought would be way too interesting to not make an episode about, so that's what we're going to talk about here today. The last year or so specifically, there's been a lot of NASCAR naysayers that have kind of come out of the woodworks, it seems, and have really taken the last few months as an opportunity to really put the sport down, put its fans down, put the drivers and teams down, just overall put the entire series down. And this article, posted to Forbes.com, pretty big source there, by Maury Brown, kind of refutes that, or it goes into detail on what some of the industry insiders, what NASCAR insiders, drivers, executives, team owners, etc., how they actually feel about the sport, and it offered some interesting details that I don't think most of us knew about. So that's why I want to talk about it. Let's dive right in. We're going to kind of read along and go with the flow. Oh, and by the way, I'm Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. So here is the article, which I'll put a link to in the description, because it's kind of long for an article at least, but I definitely encourage you to go read it. It starts with some filler, TV ratings are down, we get it, yeah, and then everyone understands that already, and so it addresses that. But then the first main section of this article is called A Changing of the Guard, where this author of the article interviewed Jeff Gordon and got some of his opinions on this matter. And I want to single out this specific small paragraph here. Gordon said that since his retirement, along with those of Dale Jr., Tony Stewart, and Danica Patrick, has helped create a star power vacuum. Yeah, I've been saying that for months, literally months and months. Before anyone else complained about anything, I said the reason NASCAR ratings are suffering right now is because Dale Jr., Tony Stewart, and Jeff Gordon are gone. And now I'm not going to keep saying the same things I've been saying, but again, if the Yankees, Dodgers, Cubs, and Red Sox all left baseball one year, their ratings would go through the tubes too. So this isn't that new or exciting, but it makes me feel good to know that Jeff Gordon agrees with me that that is one of the biggest issues the sport is facing today. Gordon goes on to say there's a lot of new faces, young talent, they're getting some good opportunities and some really good cars because big names like myself, Stewart Jr. have stepped away. That's opening up some doors, but we've got to see them produce. That sounds awfully familiar to what I talked about in my video titled Young Drivers Are Killing NASCAR. It's no secret the young drivers haven't produced this year. I mean, we just saw Eric Jones get a win at Daytona, but you know, this year's been dominated by the veterans. And I don't think that's really helping the growth of the sport too much. Jeff Gordon saying the same thing. This is all great. These young guys got the best opportunity possible to make a name for themselves and propel the sport into the future. But if they don't start producing, then it's all going to be a waste. So again, it makes me feel good that Jeff Gordon agrees with me. Now this next paragraph was perhaps the most kind of, oh, I didn't know that kind of paragraph in the entire article. The author writes, one area NASCAR will certainly hope to foster is the growth of the female demographic. According to Nielsen Scarborough, NASCAR has a higher proportion of women viewing on TV and visiting its website than any other major sports league. And that actually kind of surprised me. I thought like football would have a pretty high percentage of women, but NASCAR still holds on to a lot of female fans. You know, the stereotype is it's a good old boys sport, but there's a lot of female fans. Now I think a lot of the female fans are a little older. They're probably not attracting as many young, like teenage female fans, but I still see a lot of them. So this when I stop and think about it, this isn't super shocking, but it is a little surprising to read that NASCAR is doing better than other sports in terms of the female demographic. And I shouldn't say this means that they're getting more female viewers than other sports, like football probably still gets the most female viewers, but as far as a proportion goes, like, you know, it's not 50-50 men versus women. I'd say men probably still make up 70 to 80% of NASCAR's core audience, but there's a higher percentage of women, probably like football, maybe only 10% of women make up their audience, NASCAR it's maybe 20. I don't know the numbers, I'm just saying that to keep things in perspective. I'm not going to go into detail, but this article also has some quotes from Hailie Deegan, who you guys probably know is one of the younger and one of the best female drivers in the lower ranks of NASCAR driving the K&N series. She had some interesting things to say, but I'm going to pass by that for now, so this isn't a 30-minute video. But at the very end of this section, there's one other key paragraph I want to quickly read. NASCAR is second only to the NFL in reaching millennials. According to Nielsen again, approximately half of the social media audiences of NASCAR-owned accounts are millennials. And now millennials are, I guess, technically a little bit older than I am, but that still bodes well to NASCAR's ability to reach the younger generation. I take a little bit of pride in that. What I, and I'm sure a lot of these other NASCAR YouTubers or social media people have tried to do, is harbor a space to reach younger NASCAR fans and get new people into the sport. So it always means a lot when I get comments from you guys saying like, hey, this channel got me into NASCAR. I really appreciate when I get to see those, because that makes me feel like I'm doing my job. And it sounds like NASCAR as an organization has done a pretty good job of this, you know, from what it seems. So that's encouraging. NASCAR still has a pretty old core fan base compared to other sports, but it's nice to see that at least recently they are reaching younger audiences, because that's important for growth. The second part of this article talks about how Monster Energy is the title sponsor of the series and how that could change going forward. Monster Energy started sponsoring the Cup Series in 2017, but their deal currently will be up at the end of next season, 2019, so 2020 is still up in the air. And the article talks about this, and I've mentioned it as well in the past from other reports, that NASCAR is potentially looking at a new form of sponsorship for their top series. No longer are they necessarily going to be looking for, like, the Monster Energy Cup Series, the Sprint Cup Series. No longer will that be the key. Instead, they're going to look for, package deals to have several sponsors kind of as the official soft drink of NASCAR, the official beer of NASCAR, the official home improvement store of NASCAR. That's kind of what they're looking at. And yeah, in this article, he interviews Steve Phelps, NASCAR COO, and he talks about how NASCAR is looking to disengage from naming rights title sponsor and instead will attempt to bundle sponsorships with TV networks, tracks, and the sanctioning body beginning in 2020. 2020 is going to be a big year. That's going to be a common theme. So this day and age, and we've seen it with race teams and in other sports, it's difficult to get, one company to invest a ton into your sport. You gotta rely on a little bit from a lot of different companies. I think that's what NASCAR is trying to do. Get a little bit from you guys, a little bit from you guys, a little bit from you guys. Bam, we got the series funded. I'm gonna skip one section because it's kind of just repeating itself, but the next section is titled "NASCAR Fan Loyalty is the Driver to Sponsorship Success." It's no secret NASCAR fans are some of the most loyal fans to sponsors in all the world. Because, if I'm rooting for Jimmy Johnson, I'm gonna buy a Jimmy Johnson hat, a Jimmy Johnson shirt. I got the word Lowe's plastered all over there. And I'm not gonna lie, back when Matt Kenseth was sponsored by Home Depot, whenever I had to go to a Lowe's or a Home Depot, I would always choose Home Depot. So it does work to some extent with a lot of fans, I think. And this article talks about that a little bit, but it also provides some interesting stats that I kind of knew, but I didn't fully understand, so I want to read those off to you. According to NASCAR, nearly half of Fortune 100 companies invest in them, and more than 1 in 4 Fortune 500 companies also invest in NASCAR. But then at the bottom here is what I find more interesting. This last sentence here, the number of Fortune 500 companies investing in the sport has increased 29% in the last 10 years. So while TV ratings have dwindled slightly, fan attendance has been more sparse, they have gotten more companies to invest in NASCAR. And that kind of, I think, goes along with the idea that, you can't rely on one company to sponsor your entire series. You need to rely on a little bit from a lot of people. And I think this bodes well for the future of NASCAR. If we have a lot of companies with their foot in the door, nobody's going to step in like Lowe's has done for 20 years and sponsor Jimmy Johnson every week. That's a lot of money, and no companies are doing that these days. But there are also a lot more businesses, a lot more companies in 2018 than ever before. So it's fair to say that we can get a little bit from a lot of people and make up the amount of money that, the few giants were pouring in over the last few years. I hope this all makes sense. I'm trying to paint a good picture for you guys, but I'm not sure if I'm doing the best job. The article then specifically interviews AJ Allmendinger and some other people from JTG Daugherty Racing about their funding and stuff over the years. AJ Allmendinger said that when he joined the team in 2013, the budget was $9 million, which he described as barely surviving, according to the article. He says the team is now upwards of approximately 16 to 20 million per car, because now they have 2 cars there. So that's a huge jump for that team, and given that team hasn't had that much success and they're doing okay financially, that's a big deal because they've got some good sponsors with Kroger and others. The next section is titled "NASCAR Looks to Evolve." And for this section, the author of this interviewed Steve Newmark, who is the president of Roush Fenway Racing. And he talks about how the sport has become, much like baseball, has become more analytically minded. The people they're hiring to run teams, run the sport are more, they're Ivy League business people. They come in with a strong analytical background, and that's kind of, that's what baseball's done, and it seems to be working for them. This is what, even basketball's doing a little bit. This is what NASCAR started to do. In this article, Newmark actually admits that NASCAR was perhaps a little later than other companies in adapting to the new media landscape, but he also talks about something that I think is very interesting. Back in the day, companies were fine with just spending the money to put their logos all over the car, and it serves as like a billboard so the people on TV see it and the people at the track see it. They were fine with it. That's all they needed. We live in a world with Netflix, YouTube, Twitter, all these different types of social medias, plus different other ways to consume media. People aren't going to movie theaters as much because they can just get things on demand or go to Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Video. Amazon rules the dang world. Businesses are changing, the economies are changing, and NASCAR was perhaps a little slow to adapt. And nowadays, companies no longer are satisfied with just, hey, let's slap our logo on the car and showcase it on TV, that's all we want. No, nowadays sponsors want to be more interactive with consumers. That's why you see a lot more driver appearances these days. Drivers will go to events to help their sponsors out because they want that human interaction. It's not just enough now to send a tweet or to just drive your car every week. No, you have to do more because in this day and age, there's so many other other companies out there competing with each other. It's how you set yourself apart. And this article doesn't talk about all this. Some of this is my opinion, but I think it's fair to say that companies are trying to set themselves apart by doing more. And more is not just slapping your logo on a car and letting it drive around a track. More is hands-on, interactive, bringing your brand, your focus to as many people as possible in as efficient and as cohesive and as detailed as a way as possible. Comic-Con just passed. I want to use this as an example. A long time ago when Comic-Con first started, it was a small thing for small vendors to showcase their comics and artwork and stuff like that. Nowadays, every major media company pretty much in the world, or at least in America, has some sort of major presence at Comic-Con because it's a perfect chance to be hands-on with potential consumers. Billboards aren't as effective as they used to be. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make, and I think that's the point Steve Newmark and the author of this article are making in this section. But you guys are gonna have to read it for yourselves and take it how you will. At the end of the day, the marketing industry is evolving, and I think NASCAR was slow to get with that change at first. I think they've caught up now, but they're still playing a little bit of catch up to other sports, and I think at some point it will work out for them. It's just a very quickly evolving landscape. The next big section goes into what kind of changes could affect TV viewership or attendance figures. They have a big paragraph in here where they talk about how stage racing has been fairly well liked among fans, which I think I would tend to agree. I think most people like stage racing about how it is now. But then they also had some quotes from Jeff Gordon again, and Jeff Gordon specifically had this one. "We have too many mile-and-a-half races," Gordon said. "All the technology on the cars have put us in a box on those tracks, so anything that shakes it up is something I'm in favor of." And he's referring to is, I assume, the schedule. We've all said that we want more short tracks, more road courses. The author of the article even talks about how the Roval is coming up, in a few weeks, a couple months, and that's largely due to fan pressure to add more unique tracks to the schedule and get rid of some of these mile-and-a-halves. So Gordon acknowledges it, and it seems like NASCAR as a whole seems to acknowledge it, which means in the next couple of years when schedule changes really start to take place, we might see one or two less mile-and-a-halves, maybe a new short track, maybe a new road course, or some sort of reconfiguration. I think it's fair to say that we're in good hands there. I think they got the message that we want more short tracks and less aero-dependent cookie-cutter mile-and-a-halves. Lastly, the article ends talking a little bit about how the France family was rumored to be selling NASCAR. Now there's talks that they might be selling just a minority stake, so they could still retain most control over the sport. I don't know how fans will feel about that because I know the France family, especially in recent years with Brian France and etc., have kind of gotten on a lot of fans' bad side, so I don't know how I feel about that. But I think one thing we can take away from this article is that there is a lot of hope for the future, and things are not nearly as desolate as it may sound. I've gotten the chance to talk to a couple people kind of in the industry, and they've even told me that NASCAR is really not that worried about some suffering attendance numbers because the TV deals, sponsorship deals with people are so good right now that the money is not tough for NASCAR at the moment. In the future it could be, but this article I think brings up a lot of interesting points and at least highlights the fact that NASCAR is aware that changes need to be made, and I think us as fans have made it clear that we want certain changes, but on YouTube, on Twitter, on every social media, I've seen so many different outspoken fans with different opinions, but I think a lot of people agree on some of these changes that are sort of talked about, like adding short tracks, aero package changes, new drivers need to do well or else we're not going to be able to root for them, all these changes I think are visible, and I think everyone sees them. And I think I like that this article kind of packages it all together in a nice, neatly condensed form for us to digest. I'll go ahead and end the video here because I don't want to keep going into it too much now. I don't want to keep beating the dead horse, so to speak, but I hope that this article, if you choose to read it, which I highly recommend you go do, I hope that this article and some of the opinions and thoughts expressed here or on this YouTube channel help you feel a little bit better about the state of the sport, because I've had to deal a lot with, the last few months especially, a lot of negative people claiming NASCAR's dying, and they seem almost proud of it. Like they're proud to say that NASCAR's dying, because I don't know why. I think these people are fans of the sport, but sometimes I'm not so sure. And I think this article, along with other things I've heard and seen recently, there's good news for NASCAR. I think things don't look as bad in the long run as people seem to think they do. NASCAR is going to change. Schedule is going to change probably pretty dramatically. We're going to see a lot more new faces popping up. Jimmy Johnson's going to be gone before too long. Harvick's only got a few years left at most. We're going to continue to see change. But at least from this article, what I'm reading and what I've heard from NASCAR with the new stuff they've talked about, I feel like things are going to get better for the most part. I think most fans will be able to agree within the next couple of years that NASCAR is changing for the better. You're never going to please everyone, and that's true about just about everything. But I'm confident that NASCAR knows what needs to be done and is going to do as much as they possibly can to reach that goal. I think that's I think that's safe to say. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Definitely go read that article, read the full thing. I went over the big points, but there's probably stuff in there that you'll find more interesting than I did that could open your eyes to something new, so go check it out. Tomorrow, Double E Cup Series Tournament of Champions Race 2 will be out, so definitely be ready. Keep an eye on your sub boxes because that will be out and hitting your screens right off the bat. Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I'll be going live from this channel with Danny B, Darian, and the Iceberg, and we'll be talking to NASCAR Hall of Famer Bobby Allison's gonna join us for the first little segment of that show, so definitely tune in on the dot, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, to hear us talk to a legend. We're super excited. Really incredible that this got set up, so I hope you guys are excited for that as well. Thank you, of course, to our wonderful Patreon sponsors. I can never forget about you people. You people keep me focused. You keep this work going. You keep this channel flowing. I love it. Thank you guys so much. Check out down below and how you could potentially become a Patreon sponsor as well. What else do I have to shout out? I think that's it. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you guys found this interesting, informative, and I'll see you guys again later this week when we talk to Bobby Allison. My goodness. Very exciting. Thanks everybody. See you this week. See you later.